Welcome to Thought Frontier.
Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. This time, we're going to be tackling AI. But not just the tech side, We're going deeper, asking some pretty philosophical questions about what AI means for us humans. We've got excerpts from articles and encyclopedia entries.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, all about the philosophy of AI. And I'm so excited to unpack all of this with you today.
I am too. This is going to be a good one. It's pretty timely too. AI is evolving so fast that it's really forcing us to kind of re-examine some of our basic assumptions about, knowledge, truth, even what it means to be human.
You get that right. Yeah, one of the things that really stood out to me was this whole idea of black box AI. You've got these systems like GPT that can do some pretty crazy things, like compose music, answer really complicated questions, write poetry even. But a lot of times we don't really understand how they're coming up with these outputs.
Yeah, and that's a really interesting point. It really challenges how we think about knowledge. In philosophy, we think of knowledge as justified true belief. But with these black box AI systems, the process is kind of hidden. So if we don't understand the actual mechanisms of how an AI is reaching a conclusion, how can we really say that it's knowledge?
It's true. It's like one of the articles pointed out this example with AI recommending you new contacts on Instagram. And it's based on patterns and correlations. But do we really know the why behind it? It's kind of similar to some scientific models that make predictions that are accurate, but they don't necessarily understand the root causes.
Exactly. And it really makes you think, how comfortable are you with relying on information generated by AI when we don't always get the reasoning behind it? This is a question all of us face more and more these days, whether it's medical diagnoses or, financial advice. Are we okay with just kind of accepting AI's word for things just because it's statistically likely to be right?
Yeah, and it's kind of scary. And it makes you think about, okay, well, if it can make decisions, then who is accountable for those decisions?
That is a great question. This is where things get really interesting. Can we hold an AI accountable if it doesn't have the same kind of intention as humans do? One article I read compared it to a lifeguard. If a lifeguard gives you wrong information about the swimming conditions and something happens, they're held responsible, right? So can we apply that same logic to an AI system?
And it's not just some theoretical thing, this is happening right now with self-driving cars. I know you've been reading a lot about that. A lot of people are hesitant about the technology because it's not really clear who's responsible if something goes wrong. If the AI makes a mistake, is it the programmer? Is it the person using the car? Is it the AI itself?
These are really big questions. And while there's not an easy answer, I think it's really important we at least try to grapple with it because AI is becoming more and more a part of our lives.
Yeah. And as it gets more sophisticated, it makes me wonder, how does that impact our own sense of freedom? If an AI can predict our behavior, does that in some way take away our free will? One of the articles mentioned that computer algorithm in China that uses AI to assess people's social value, which is kind of scary when you think about it. It's are we moving towards a future where the AI is dictating our choices?
That's a valid concern.
Instead of just predicting them.
That example brings up a ton of ethical questions about how AI is used and how we protect individual liberties in a world that's driven by data.
Absolutely. And, it reminds me of utilitarianism. I'm not totally clear on it.
Yeah.
But isn't that the idea of trying to get the greatest good for the most people, even if it means sacrificing some individual rights?
Yeah.
With AI's ability to analyze all this data and optimize for outcomes, it seems like that kind of thinking would be a natural fit.
You're right to bring that up. Yeah, AI does seem well-suited for optimizing for the greater good. But it also brings up some really tricky ethical questions, is it okay to sacrifice individual freedom for the benefit of the group? That's a question people have been debating for centuries. And AI is just adding a whole new layer of complexity to it.
It really is. There's so much to unpack here.
Yeah.
And I think it makes you realize that AI isn't just about technological advancement. It really has these huge philosophical implications too.
Totally agree.
It's almost like AI is holding up a mirror to humanity and forcing us to really examine our own values and beliefs.
I think that's a great way to put it. AI really challenges us to define what we truly value. And speaking of values, it's important to remember that AI isn't neutral. It can reflect and even amplify the biases that are already present in the data that it's trained on.
That's true. And one article even said
that
if an AI is trained on biased data, it's going to produce biased results. It's kind of like garbage in, garbage out, right?
Exactly.
It makes me wonder if we're in danger of building AI that just perpetuates harmful stereotypes. and prejudices.
That is a major concern, and I think it underscores how important it is to really think about the data sets that we're using to train these AI systems. You know who's collecting the data, what biases might already be embedded in it. These are crucial questions.
They really are. It also raises questions about who is designing these systems.
Yeah.
And what their goals are. One source pointed out that different cultures have different ethical frameworks. So an AI trained in a culture that has very different norms and values is going to produce very different outcomes.
Yeah, and that's why it's super important to have a diverse group of people
Yeah.
involved in developing AI. We need to make sure that AI is aligned with a whole range of values and ethical principles.
Yeah, I totally agree. And speaking of different approaches to AI, I thought it was really interesting to learn about the different schools of thought in AI research. You know, like there's the logic-based AI folks, and then there's the neurocomputational AI folks, right?
Yeah, you got it. It's like two different paths to creating intelligent systems. On the one hand, you've got the logic-based approach, which relies on symbolic reasoning and explicit rules to guide AI decision-making. It's very structured and transparent, kind of like programming a computer with a very clear set of instructions.
Yeah, and then there's the neurocomputational approach,
Yeah.
which is more about mimicking the human brain with artificial neural networks. So these systems kind of learn from massive amounts of data. And they can identify patterns and make connections without being explicitly programmed with those rules.
Right. It's like teaching a child by showing them a bunch of examples instead of giving them a rule book. And this approach has actually led to some pretty amazing breakthroughs in areas like image recognition and natural language processing.
And one of the articles even said, the future of AI might be a combination of both approaches, like a dream team, you know, logic and neurocomputation working together.
I love that, a dream team. That's a great way to think about it. Because each approach has its own strengths and weaknesses. So like logic-based AI is great for tasks that require clear reasoning and explainability, while neurocomputational AI is really good at pattern recognition and dealing with complex unstructured data. So combining the two could lead to some seriously powerful and versatile AI systems.
It could. And, you know, as we keep going deeper into this AI world, it brings up a really fundamental question. Can machines be intelligent?
Yeah.
In the same way as humans? Like, can they be conscious?
Yeah, that is the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's the heart of the philosophy of AI. And one of the sources talked about this idea of strong AI versus weak AI. So strong AI is about creating machines that have human-like consciousness and subjective experience, while weak AI is focused on creating systems that seem intelligent, even if they don't actually have genuine understanding or self-awareness.
So strong AI is like what we see in the sci-fi movies, where machines have emotions and desires.
Yeah, that's the idea. But achieving strong AI is still very much in the realm of science fiction. We don't even fully understand consciousness in humans yet, let alone how to replicate it in machines.
It's true. And then to make it even more complicated, there's this thought experiment called the Chinese room argument, which challenges our whole idea of what it means for a machine to understand something.
Oh yeah, the Chinese room, that's a classic thought experiment in AI.
It is.
It basically imagines a person who doesn't speak Chinese locked in a room with a super detailed rule book for manipulating Chinese symbols. So this person can get questions in Chinese. And by following the rules in the book, they can give grammatically correct answers. So from the outside, it looks like they understand Chinese, but do they really, or are they just following instructions?
So what the Chinese room argument is saying is, even if a machine can pass the Turing Test, which means it can hold a conversation, that's so convincing it seems human. That doesn't necessarily mean that it actually understands or is conscious.
Exactly. It's like the difference between simulating intelligence and actually possessing it. It makes you wonder if true understanding needs something more than just processing information according to rules.
It really does. This is making my head spin a little bit, but in a good way. It's like AI is forcing us to rethink what intelligence even means. We can't assume that just because a machine can mimic human behavior, that it's thinking or feeling the same way we do.
Right. It's a good reminder of how complex the human mind is and the limits of what we understand right now.
That's for sure. But it's amazing to think about how, even with those limits, AI is already having a big impact on other fields. Like I remember one source mentioned how AI is being used in neuroscience to study the brain.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
And how it works.
AI is helping us analyze brain imaging data, map neural networks, even simulate different cognitive processes. It's giving us incredible insights into how the brain learns, remembers, and makes decisions.
So it's like a two-way street. AI is getting inspiration from the brain, and it's helping us to better understand the brain.
Exactly. And it's not just neuroscience either. AI is influencing fields like psychology, linguistics, even philosophy itself, by creating these artificial systems that can learn, reason, and even be creative. We're gaining new perspective on how the human mind works.
It is incredible to think about what AI could do to help us understand ourselves better. But of course, with great power comes great responsibility. We can't ignore the potential risks, especially as AI gets more powerful and sophisticated.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We need to be aware of the potential downsides. One concern that comes up a lot is the possibility of jobs displacement as AI systems become capable of doing things that humans used to do.
Yeah, that makes sense. And a lot of experts think that AI will inevitably change the job market. Some jobs will be automated, and new jobs will emerge in fields related to AI.
Right, and it's crucial that we anticipate these changes and invest in education and training programs that will help people develop the skills they need. To thrive in this AI-powered economy, we need to make sure that the benefits of AI are shared widely and that no one is left behind.
Yeah, that's really important. And of course, we can't forget about the elephant in the room, the possibility of AI becoming uncontrollable or even turning against humanity.
Yeah, the superintelligence scenario. That we see in so many sci-fi movies. That topic tends to generate a lot of fear and speculation.
It's definitely a little unsettling to think about. If we create an AI that's more intelligent than humans in every way, how do we know it will stay aligned with our values? How do we stop it from becoming a threat?
These are huge questions that we don't have definite answers to yet. Some experts say it's impossible to predict how a superintelligent AI would behave, while others think we can design safeguards and control mechanisms to prevent it from becoming harmful.
It's like we're going into uncharted territory. It's exciting and terrifying at the same time.
It really is, but I do think that if we have these open and honest conversations about the potential risks and benefits of AI, and if we work together to come up with ethical guidelines and safeguards, then we can navigate this uncharted territory responsibly.
Yeah, I agree. It seems like the main takeaway is that AI is powerful, and it has the potential to both improve and disrupt our lives in some pretty major ways. So we need to approach it with a balanced perspective, recognizing both its potential for good and the need to manage it carefully.
I couldn't agree more. The future of AI is ultimately up to us. We have the power to shape its development and make sure that it aligns with our values and aspirations.
Well said. Okay, so we've covered a lot today, from the nature of knowledge to the possibility of consciousness in machines. We even touched on some pretty scary scenarios about AI becoming super intelligent.
Yeah, it's a lot to process.
It's enough to make anyone's head spin.
Hopefully in a good way.
But hopefully it's been thought-provoking and insightful. These are complex topics, but I think they're conversations that we need to be having.
I agree 100%.
It's clear that AI isn't just a technological issue. It's a philosophical issue and a societal issue.
Absolutely.
So where do we go from here? If someone's been listening to this, what's the one thing we want them to take away?
That's a good question. I think the key takeaway is that the philosophical questions around AI aren't just for academics or, tech experts. They're for everyone. Because at the end of the day, these questions are about our shared future. What kind of society do we want to build with AI? What kind of relationship do we want to have with technology? And what does it even mean to be human in a world with intelligent machines?
I love that. It's not about AI replacing us. It's about AI evolving with us. And we have a role to play in shaping that.
Exactly. And one of the most important ways we can do that is by making sure AI is developed ethically. We talked about bias earlier, but it's such a critical issue that it deserves its own deep dive.
Oh, for sure.
I mean, because bias in AI isn't just a technical problem. It's a reflection of our own biases as a society.
Yeah.
And if we're not careful, AI could amplify those biases. And that could lead to all sorts of unfair or even harmful outcomes.
Exactly. And think about it. AI systems are already being used in things like hiring, loan applications, even criminal justice. So if those systems are trained on data that's biased, they can just keep perpetuating existing inequalities.
Right.
We could end up with AI that makes prejudice and discrimination even worse.
That's a scary thought.
It is. And it's like that saying, technology is a tool. A hammer can build a house, or it can break something down. It depends on the person using it.
And with AI, the stakes are so much higher.
They are.
Because we're talking about systems that can make decisions that impact people's lives in huge ways. So we need to be really thoughtful about who's designing these systems, what data they're trained on, and what safeguards are in place to ensure fairness and accountability.
We do.
Yeah.
We've been talking a lot about the potential risks of AI. Which are important. But I'm wondering, are we maybe focusing too much on the doom and gloom? We also talk about how AI can help us solve some of the world's biggest problems, like in healthcare and climate change.
Yeah, you're right. It's important to acknowledge both sides, the potential benefits and the potential risks. It's not about being naive or overly pessimistic. It's about having a balanced view. We need to recognize the possible problems, but also harness the power of AI for good.
And I think that's a great note to end on. So after this deep dive into AI and philosophy, what's next for our listener? Where do we go from here?
Well, I think the most important thing is to stay curious, keep learning, keep asking questions, keep having these conversations. Because the future of AI is being shaped right now. And it's a future we all have a stake in.
I love that. This isn't just some abstract technology happening somewhere else. AI is already affecting our lives in so many ways, and it's only going to become more integrated into our world. So stay informed, stay engaged, and keep those critical thinking skills sharp. We're all in this together, figuring out how to navigate this exciting and sometimes a little scary age of intelligent machines.
And remember, this is just the beginning. We've just scratched the surface of the philosophical questions that AI brings up, and the field is changing so quickly, which means those questions are only going to get more complex and even more important to address.
Well said. It's time for us to wrap up this deep dive, but the learning doesn't stop here. If you're interested in this topic, there are tons of resources out there, books, articles, podcasts, documentaries, you name it. So dive in, do your own research, and form your own opinions.
This is just the beginning of a fascinating journey into the world of AI and its impact on humanity. Until next time.
See you then.